Right, welcome to Painting 101. I'm going to show you how to paint within the lines. It's not like crayons, it's not like pencil crayons, it's not like pen, it's very different. It has a life of its own. But first we need to mix some colours. So, we have how many primary colours? Three. What are they?
Red, yellow.
It's like you've rehearsed this. This is amazing. Do we know what secondary colours are?
Yes.
Someone who is beautiful and feels very into it today, tell me what they are. Hands up. Great, first up. Yeah, you were the only one actually.
Green,
yep.
orange, and
Purple. Excellente. Now, in your bag of tricks, please focus over here. Thank you, Nana. We have a cool blue and a warm blue. All right. Cool blue and warm blue will then change what we call the tone of your color. All right. Now the tone of your color will make the difference between whether you match your colors with a red or whether you match your colors with a blue or a green. All right. So we'll get into that a little bit later because that's when color theory comes in, when you'll actually start painting your pop art portraits. All right. So can we all see the paint? Okay, great. So here we've got our warm blue, cool blue, red, and yellow. So first things first, we're going to use our square end brush. And this is the one that you'll be dipping just very slightly into your water. You don't have to do it now. Please don't do it now. And the first things first is we're going to start filling in our red, our yellow, and our blue. All right, so let's start with red. Now, you can see the amount that I've put into the tray is not a lot. It's about the same amount that you would use, actually probably less if your teeth are rather big, when you're using toothpaste. All right, nothing too over the top because you don't want to waste your paint. And the first thing that you're going to do is, what I like to do is I like to start in the middle and I like to paint in one direction. The reason I start in the middle is because that's where I want, if I'm going to be avoiding mistakes, I want to make sure that any areas where my lines are a little bit rough, as you can see there, they're not going to go near the lines. Once I get a little bit closer to the line, I want to add a little bit more paint to my brush. But can you see how the color is really saturated? Does anybody know what saturated means? No? Have a guess. Not necessarily, yeah? Bright is more coming closer to the tone, yeah? Vibrant, yes. So the color is saturated, meaning that there are no white spaces in between one brush stroke and the next. And for some reason, plastic decided to visit me today. Okay, great. So, what can you notice about how much paint I'm putting on my brush? It's not a lot, yeah. And that's simply because when you're painting, if you do overload your brush, you're actually going to go over the lines. So now that I'm getting closer to the line, I want to make sure that my paint is sticking just slightly closer to the edge. All right, so that when I do come close to this line and I drag it, it's not going to go over that line. Now, who can tell me what they notice about how I'm holding my brush now, as opposed to when I was doing it through the middle? What's the difference to how I'm holding it? You see the difference? What am I doing here? Yeah?
There's more grip when you go to the edges.
More grip? Sort of. Have a look again. How am I holding it? Have a look at how the bristles are moving as opposed to here. Look at my hand. Up, down, yeah? Yeah. Let's use our mathematical words. Angled, yes. Shock horror, you were correct. All right, so we need to make sure that when we come closer to the line, we want our bristles to splay or spread out a little bit more, so they tend to do this when we bring it to a lower angle. All right, and by doing that, the paint that's on the tips is actually going to come closer to the line, and the slower you drag your paintbrush, the straighter your line is going to become. If you were to hurriedly go next to the line, it's going to just make a mess, all right, and make your life a lot harder. So I'll show you again. And much like who paints their nails? Should be everybody. Okay, well, when I paint my nails, Do you notice that when you go to the edge or the corners of your cuticles, you tend to slow down a little bit more? Same principle when it comes to painting, all right? So, nice and slowly, and drag it out. Can you see how this paint is spreading? If you find that your paint is starting to run out, see how it drags there? We're going to flip our brush around so that the paint on the other side does the rest of the work. Another thing I want you to note is that I'm not just moving my fingertips, I'm actually moving my whole arm, and that helps to keep it a little bit more steady. And the other point that I also want to make is that I'm stabilizing my wrist and my hand by leveling it with my pinky, all right? So this edge of your pinky or the side of your palm is what's going to keep it nice and stable, all right? So let me just finish this off. Now you should also have a small detailed brush, one that looks like this. Do you have one of those? Now you can actually use that to fill in smaller areas. So in order to break it in, you'll need to dip it into some water. Now because these bristles are a little bit more, they're actually synthetic bristles, so they tend to hold a lot more of the water when you place it into the jar. So once you've taken it out of the jar, just remove the excess. Now, can you see that beautiful fine tip there? This is what we call a ballerina brush. All right, phone should be off. This is what we call a ballerina tip brush. So when you're using it, you're not going to be using it flat like this because you're not going to get the best out of that brush. You'll just be using it on the tip. And because these brushes are rather expensive, you don't want to damage this because you'll need it to last till for the rest of your time at doing art. So can you see how this brush actually manages to finish off those lines a lot better? Can you see how much neater that is than opposed to using the square tip brush, all right? So that's basically what you're going to do when it comes to filling in your color wheel. So let's start with those primary colors. Remember, how much do you need to place into your tray, into your mixing tray?
A teeny bit.
Teeny tiny bit. Think of it like a pea size. That's over enough, all right?
Yeah, mine. Not to very